I'm Alex.
I'm James.
And I'm Dan.
We're the RAGAMUFFINs, and this is episode 45 of the RAGAMUFFIN Music Podcast. Filmed for the first time. How
Look
exciting.
at this. You can see our faces
Look at
as
us
well
go.
as hear our voices.
Leveling up.
This is a place for us to talk about the music that we love.
On this episode, we're reviewing brand new singles from Linkin Park, Better Lovers, as well as albums from Boston Manor and Kublai.
And we'll be talking about Warped Tour. It's coming back, apparently.
But first, let's talk about last episode's album recommendations. So if you're new here, every episode we recommend an album to each other, and then the next episode after that, we'll all talk about it. It's very fun. It's like a book club, but for albums. Nice. James, what did you recommend us?
I recommended Dream Theater's Scenes from a Memory. Now, very proggy album. We meme it a lot anyway.
Yeah. Dream Theater was a meme in our house growing up.
Very much was.
It's kind of been a meme on the podcast as well as Portnoy Bingo.
Portnoy Bingo.
I mean, this is Portnoy
If you're playing
Bingo,
Portnoy Bingo along at home, still, for some reason, because that joke's about 3 years old now.
Keep it going. Always play it.
You can take another one off now, or however Bingo works. I don't know. I'm under 30.
I mean, you've heard some of these songs at least before, but I don't think you'd listen to the album in full. So
No.
How was that? Because it is a concept as well.
Yes.
I don't know if you followed or anything like that.
Well, prior to this, my Dream Theater listening was typically like playlists. So I just sort of picked and choose from albums, like songs that I knew from other albums. The only album I'd listened to in full was Systematic Chaos before this, because it's an absolute
Great
banger
album.
of an album. I was familiar with what the concept was for this, because, like we said, we used to meme it a lot, particularly like... I remember quite a lot just singing Victoria's Real, just those two words to each other. So from that, I kind of already knew like the concept and stuff. But I was actually like, I really enjoyed it. I didn't think I would. I think the thing that like struck me the most was that like it is this, and this whole genre is sort of like this. It is sort of a musician's album.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Like the fact that like the thing that really struck me was like repeated motifs and repeated ideas and like reinterpretations of like melodies and ideas that were prior in the album coming back. I felt like that sort of kept it very much like contained within its own world, and I found the concept relatively easy to follow. Like compare this to the Stone Sour House of Golden Bones concept double album, which is an absolute meandering nightmare.
Great album
to wrap your head around.
But
this one, I felt like it like wasn't beating you over the head with it, but you could tell what was going on. And if there was anything, you could just Google it and figure it out, or read the lyrics and figure it out. But I thought it was great, and I actually can't believe it, but I've got to give some credit to James LeBrie.
oh, don't do that.
Because his vocals on this album, I think, lended themselves to the different characters quite well, particularly like the hypnotist, and then kind of just the contrast between when he was Victoria and when he's the narrator. Can't remember what their name is. But I thought it was great, and it's home to the best Dream Theater song of all time, The Dance of Eternity. So for that, it's another gold star.
I would just say for a reference as well that it's called Metropolis Part 2.
Mm.
And if you were to go and listen to...
Which implies the existence of a part 1.
Exactly. If you go and listen to Metropolis Part 1, which is on Images and Words, not Images and Turds.
Images and Turds,
as we used to call it. You'll hear those motifs and where they've then expanded from that, which is something that is very clever. But
also just interesting as well that I'm so used to listening to The Dance of Eternity on its own that every single time I listen to this album, when it like flowed seamlessly into the following track, it always caught me by surprise, because I'm so used to like my Dream Theater playlist just shuffling like onto something random. But every time it flows into the next one, I'm like, oh, yes, this is sick. So I liked it. Good album, unbelievable. But
I don't imagine you've ever listened to this.
That was a very eloquently and well worded review, Alex.
Thank you.
Very in depth.
I thought it was quite boring. I couldn't get through it in one listen. I think I stopped by like the 5th track, which is about 45 minutes in, or at least it felt like it.
It was a dense album.
So I had to do it in like 2 sittings. And as Alex said, it's very much a musician's album, and I can really appreciate that these are really, really talented musicians, and they've composed some really intricate and like incredible songs, but I just don't vibe with it. I want hooks. I want like easy lyrical melodies that I can sing along to. And I can't really do that with Dream Theater, unfortunately.
No,
Does
that's
this-
not
So,
really them.
with all due respect, they're an excellent band. I understand why people love them, but it's just not for me at all.
Mm.
Does this mean you're going to still continue, James, with doing
I'll
three
consider
Dream
it.
Theatre albums?
I think about it.
Because that's
With
torture
Dan, I
for
think.
Dan.
I mean, if we were to do
That's
that,
6 listening sessions for me.
it will be. I mean, if I was to do that, I would just make it even worse, and I'll do Octavarium next,
Oh, fuck.
because the title track is 25 minutes on its own. It's his own whole side of a vinyl when they pressed it. So
I'll try listening when I next go for a run for the next Dream Theater one. So like my pace is like
You're basically all over the place. Yeah.
oh, 100%.
Well, sorry, no.
no, go on.
No, I was going to say something rude about the dance fraternity.
What the concept of it?
Yeah.
Go on.
So the concept of that song is that it's meant to be sex.
Yes.
Like within the narrative of the story, which is why like the time signatures and that are all like crazy, because it's meant to simulate like the different rhythms of that
I didn't know at
and
one
the different
point.
like flows of.
I didn't
that
know at one point
activity.
how many it was, but I think it is something. It genuinely is over 100 different time signature changes throughout that song.
Crazy.
And I learned it on drums a long time ago. And I remember you asking me at one point, it's like, oh, do you count it? And I was like, no, I
Yeah.
can't be asked to
It's all
count
off
that
of
shit.
vibe.
I'm just doing it off of vibe, feeling, and just memory.
The thing is as well, and they might even be watching this. There are people out there that have done it along in time.
you see. This is why I prefer
In
pop punk,
time.
because it's just the same BPM for 2.5 minutes.
4/4, we're not changing BPM, constant tempo. We're 13/8 or something
Yeah.
like that at points, if I remember correctly.
That's why I like hardcore, because it's like 200 BPM for about 40 seconds.
Oh, you took my joke and just ran with it.
Yeah, sorry.
What did you recommend, Dan?
I recommended Knuckle Puck's legendary pop punk album, Go Pathetic, because it
classic.
turns 10 years old next
The
year.
Classice.
And they're going to be playing at the Slam Dunk Festival, and you should get your tickets and be there with us.
Certified classic, innit? I mean, what more can be said? I think the thing that I try and like take from albums like this now when I go back to them is like all the obvious songs are obvious. Like the big singles are that for a reason. But like I guess trying to appreciate the deeper cuts a bit more, which I really did on this listen. I think it's fantastic, and it's weird to me, like my relationship with Knuckle Puck now, because I'm practically like unaware of what they've been doing.
I'm the same.
Probably
I've,
for the last
I've literally-
5 years.
I've got a tattoo for this album. I loved
Yeah.
it at the time. I mean, I still love it now, and I
Yeah.
still really like Knuckle Puck, but I'm kind of like almost desensitized to their music now. I've not really
Yeah.
listened to much they've done since Shapeshifter. I've enjoyed what they do, but I've not had the same connection as I did with this album.
Yeah, like I'm never turning it off. Like
No,
new
for
stuff,
sure.
But I don't know. So it was weird. It kind of brought back like that feeling of first like falling in love with this band because of this album. So it was nice to revisit it, and I think hearing it in full at Slam Dunk's going to be crazy.
I think this was the first time I've listened to it in full.
Wow. Because I remember the first time that I played you a Knuckle Puck song. I
Pretense.
think we might have been in the car on the way to see Beartooth,
In Birmingham.
and I really wanted to go and see Knuckle Puck in London, but I had no one to go with. So I
Mhm.
tried to persuade you by burning Pretense onto a CD and playing it in my car.
And you was exaggerating a certain segment, which is a glorious blast beat. And I mean, yeah, that is still the highlight of the album for me. Because again, it kind of has that nostalgia and kind of that throwback feel to it. And as soon as I hear it, I do think back to being in the car on the way. No, it was a really nice experience listening to it in full, to be honest. I think it flows fantastically as an album. I won't lie that throughout it, like kind of starting from the beginning, I was just looking forward to the 1-2 at the end of Pretense and Entitled, because I think they are fantastic songs. However,
Which, by the way, Knuckle Puck have said that on these anniversary shows they're going to be playing the full version of Untitled,
oh, are they?
like the full outro. I don't know if they'll do that at Slam Dunk, because they'll probably have a bit of a
short
set time limit, but at least at their headline
Interesting.
shows.
Everyone just standing there, just watch them do the outro for fucking ages. But no, it was a really enjoyable listen, and it was nice to actually have the time to sit down and listen to it in full. It's always been known as, I mean, even when Slam Dunk announced it, but before that, from U2 in particular, saying about how big an album it is for them and for pop punk in general, anyway. And so to actually kind of have more of an understanding on that now was really nice to have. So yeah, really, really fucking enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
And now you.
Any new songs in particular that stood out to you? 'Cause you said it's the first time you've listened to them full.
Evergreen. I liked.
Yeah, that's actually my favourite off that album.
And
You can
Disdain
believe it.
were like the two ones that I hadn't really heard before that I was like, oh cool, that stands out. That's nice. But it was nice energy throughout and just flows effortlessly.
I will say as well, I thought at the time as well, and like revisiting it has put it back into my memory as well of how tight the drums sound on this record. Like, there's something about the mix, like compared to other pop punk albums of this kind of era, the drums just like stick out so much, particularly the snare.
I think
It just sounds so great.
for me, from the drum perspective, it doesn't sound like pop punk drums the way the mix is done, and that's what makes it different and not your usual kind of pop punk sound. Like the mix and mastering on it is different. The production they've done, probably even some of the tuning they've got on it within their kit in itself, just it's very distinct from what you would usually get in pop punk. So that really makes it stand out quite nicely. And yeah, the drums are an absolute fucking pleasure to listen to. It's gorgeously done.
There's something about this album, I think, that something in the songwriting particularly that I think makes it sound like way more timeless than a lot of the other stuff from its era. Like if you think about Life's Not Out to Get You, like Under Soil and Dirt, what else would have been at that sort of time? Even like Cheap Shots and what was it called? No, Never Happy Ever After As It Is. Like that sort
There
of.
would have been like a Seaway around at that
Yeah,
time.
like the 2010s, like early to mid 2010s pop punk. As much as I love all those albums and some of those absolute classics, they sound like they're 10 years old. I don't think this one does. I think this one sounds like if you told me that this was a brand new album, I'd never heard it before, and you said this has come out this year, I would believe you. Whereas I probably wouldn't say the same thing about like Life's Not Out to Get You or some of those other albums that I just listed.
Can see that.
So I think there's a timelessness to the songwriting on it that I think's probably helped it be so like long standing.
And your recommendation?
My recommendation was planning to be the first part in a 3-part Paramore saga, which I might still do, but I'll do it like every other episode just to break it up. But I recommended Brand New Eyes, which Dan said was his favourite Paramore album.
And I mean, it still is on revisiting it, but it's going to be until I revisit another Paramore album anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just think the start, at least, like Careful Ignorance, Playing God into Brick by Boring Brick, is just such a strong start to an album. And similarly to Copacetic, it still kind of stands up now. Like even though it's like almost like 15 years old, I think,
Probably,
maybe longer.
Yeah.
It just sounds like it's if a band did it now, you could be like, oh, it's like they're bringing back that kind of sound. It doesn't sound like it's that generic late 2000s pop punk sound. It genuinely sounds like they're doing something unique with it as well.
Yeah.
And it's evidence as to why Paramore would put on that kind of pedestal of like leading the way and inspiring like a whole generation of new musicians, I think.
Yeah, I think it's weird because like we've talked a lot before about when bands do something like iconic, the follow-up always ends up having to like live in its shadow. And I feel like for like a good few years, because this was the follow-up to Riot, it was always sort of like being measured up to that. And I feel like now it's only been like the last few years where it's sort of found its own like appreciation for what it is. And I think it's just as good as Riot. I think it's like you said, that opening run, I would say even up to Feeling Sorry, like those first, what's that? 2, 3, like first 7 songs, just absolutely bonkers. Like the only misstep I feel like this album has is like looking up and where the lines overlap. I wouldn't even say they're a misstep. I would just say that they are.
I think that's just the pacing of the album. Like later on in that album, it feels like there's a few more slower songs in the latter half than in the first half.
But still great. And then obviously to end with All I Wanted and then Decode on the special edition is unreal. Yeah. Like I think as well. Sorry, go on.
Also, like the amount of songs on this album that you'll hear at like the Doghouse at Download or at like any emo club night, it's just like testament of how iconic it is.
I would say there's probably more singles off of this that you would hear at that sort of event than you would off of Riot, probably.
Right, I guess you've probably got maybe Crush,
Yeah,
Misery Business.
maybe that's what you get.
Yeah.
But there's like easily 5 songs here that you could play,
Yep.
and people will just go crazy for it.
Mm-hmm.
My last point before we get James's opinion is, I think this album, and also seeing her sing live this year, has made me realise that she's like absolutely one of the best, like all-time singers.
Yeah, that was the other thing I wanted to
And
say.
it's only because she's in like the alternative genre that it's not in the discussion with like people talk about like Freddie Mercury and like Whitney Houston and stuff. I honestly would put Hayley Williams as like one of the best all-time singers.
The vocal range on this album is phenomenal, and she was probably like 20, 21 at the time.
Yeah, that's what's crazy as well. She was doing this so young. But yeah.
They were signed, I think, when she was like 16.
Oh,
When they actually signed for their first release, I think. Something like that. I mean, it's all right.
Oh, what the fuck?
I mean, I laugh, but this is basically what I do the Dream Theater, isn't it? So.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I think I knew 3. I knew Ignorance, Brick by Boring Brick, and The Only Exception. And I was like, okay, I recognise these when they came on.
You're telling me you don't
Mostly.
know All I Wanted?
No, didn't know that.
Mental. It's obviously when you go to the toilet at the doghouse.
Probably, yeah. Or going to get another drink or Yorkie puds. Yeah, it was okay. Like, it flowed nicely, but I just couldn't get into it, to be honest, that much. It just wasn't anything. Again, I can kind of respect it, and I completely echo, like, her vocal ability is fantastic, and you're, like, getting frustrated now, which is quite funny.
It's fine. That's why we do it.
Leave Hayley alone.
That's why we do it.
But no, I just kind of found myself zoning in and out and not necessarily paying attention, even just sitting there with headphones on just to listen to it. It just didn't catch me, to be honest. And it's like, I'm going to probably get a lot of fucking hate for it, but I mean, I've never been a huge Paramore fan. Like, I know the hits. It's like Misery Business and stuff. I mean, I can't, whatever the title track from the last album.
This is why.
Yep, hated that. I still remember that. And I can hear the
song
melody.
of the album.
Catchy as hell.
The song of the album.
The song, I didn't like the album either, to be honest. But the song in particular, I can hear like the melody because it's catchy as hell, and I can appreciate the songwriting. But like even that, I really did not like it. And this was better. Like I've never even listened to Writing Full or anything like that. So I imagine that will come up shortly at some point. But like Paramore have never been a band that I'm like, oh yeah, I really want to go listen to them. Like the few bits I've heard, I'm like, yeah, it's okay. But there isn't the desire for me there to want to invest.
All right, well, should we talk about some new music instead?
Yeah, maybe James will like some of the new music.
Oh, I definitely like some of the new music. Right, new music then. It's been a busy month. There's been a lot of good stuff out. And we're starting with Fit for an Autopsy with Savour of None, Ashes of All. Now, the new album's coming out next month, which I'm incredibly excited for. Hostage, I think, was fantastic. Kind of fell in love with them after What the Future Holds in 2022, I want to say.
Sounds about right. That was a great album.
Probably my favourite deathcore album, to be honest, in general anyway. But I've just been kind of intrigued and waiting on all of this to come out, and these singles are coming out, Hostage and this, I love. I feel like there's a nice evolution of Fit. Kind of more melodic vocals coming into it, which kind of is intriguing me, but still that heavy deathcore sound. And I think as we'll kind of get onto another release in a bit, that the magic of Will Putney is all over it for me, to be honest. And I can just listen to it again and again, hear the song title name, and I can hear melodies in there and the words spoken of the song title, and it's those kind of catchiness parts that just keep pulling me back into it. So I'm a very happy Fit for an Autopsy fan right now.
See, I think it's a great song. That felt a bit Simon Calvin. It's great. I liked it, but it's a no from me. No, it's a yes for me. I really, really enjoy this song. I like the contrast. I'm sure I've said this about this band before. I love the contrast between like the cleans and the screams, the heavy parts, and like the melodic choruses and things. But where I really like this band is in a full like album setting. Like I don't think one song is enough for them to kind of convey and like squash in everything they want to do. Because I really liked their previous album, so I think I'll have to wait and pass judgment when the full album is out and listen to the whole thing in one go to kind of really get what the message and what they're trying to do with it is.
Yeah,
and that's not to say that this song's messy or anything. It's an enjoyable song. I think I'll enjoy it more when it's all mashed together.
I would say I now can't stop picturing you with Simon Cowell's haircut. Continue.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I agree. I think it's like it's almost like it's not enough for you to get your teeth into. Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like too little. So yeah, I feel the same in the sense that an album is probably going to be like, once it comes, it's going to take up a lot of my time and attention. But I feel like, yeah, the singles sort of like wash over me. Like, I can't really pick out like particular songs from What the Future Holds, but I know that I love the whole thing.
Yeah,
if that makes
that's
sense.
that's exactly what I'm like as well.
So aside from like a few like High Level of Hate and Far From Heaven, like, but do you know what I mean? Like on the whole, like this and the other song, like haven't really sunk in yet, and I think they will once it's like within the context of a full album. But yeah, I think they are like one of the catchiest heavy bands going, like within the realm, like the sort of metalcore, deathcore, like worlds that they exist in. Like they write some insanely catchy stuff, like, and some really melodic stuff for how like crushingly heavy it is. So yeah, they're amazing.
October 28th.
There we go.
Pin that
It's
date.
pretty soon.
Pin that date.
Mm.
And we'll, like I say, we'll kind of continue with the Will Putney theme then. Better Lovers just dropping singles out of nowhere. Again, with an album coming out next month. Future Myopia. Again, I'm just really happy with it. I think they've got such a distinct sound, which is just absolutely fucking incredible. You can't really compare them to another band, I think, in the slightest that much. You get the Dillinger kind of references, but mostly just because of Greg's vocals. But even we were kind of talking before even recording, and I was like, what kind of genre would you describe them as? And I kind of settled into maybe melodic deathcore.
I don't know,
but they're not a clear like metalcore,
heavy.
not a clear deathcore, just heavy.
Yeah,
I think it almost comes with them with them pretty much being a supergroup. There's so many different influences that are going into it that it's like just sticking all these heavy music genres into a blender. And like you know those like old YouTube channels that just stick different ingredients in a blender and then they'd be like, oh yeah, that's good. That's basically what Better Lovers have been doing, but it's good every time.
They don't miss.
like they've had.
Like they've got their base of like orange juice or something nailed down. So you know that if it's got some orange juice in it, it's going to be good. And then it doesn't really matter what else you put in. You know it's going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously like some like surface level comparisons to like Dillinger, Every Time I Die, just because that is like who they are. So that was their musical identity for so long that's going to naturally seep into what they do now. But it's still so impressive how like unique this is to just not only those two bands that they were in, and like it's unique to everything that Will Putney's done, but it's unique to the rest of the scene as well. Like there isn't a band that does anything like this. The only like comparison I have in my head is that's how I used to feel about Let Live, in that I didn't really think anyone created like such a specific defined soundscape that no one else was replicating like they did. So yeah, I'm really excited for the album. I like that the release sort of campaign has been quite erratic and random, and like it's all like
Seems
no
fitting.
warning stuff. It's just like, oh, here it is, here's another one. Like
It's like, you know how Sleep Token always have those like really thought out like release schedules for things. It's like they've made it seem like they're doing that, but there's no actual schedule to it. They're
Feels like
just
they've got a group chat.
going, oh, let's put that on it.
Group chat, and it's like, should put a song out tomorrow. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, let's
right.
put that one out.
it's probably
Fine.
it's like really meticulously planned chaos, which again is what their music is. So
Put the release schedule in a blender.
yep. Brilliant.
Right. So I've already done a reaction to the brand new Linkin Park song, Heavy as the Crown. But we're going to talk about the first one that came out, The Emptiness Machine, first single from Zero, which is coming out November 15th. I can talk about this for days, but I kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts first, to be honest.
I think it bangs. I think it's really, really good. What I like about it, obviously they're introducing Emily as a new vocalist. It is Emily, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like obviously Mike's kind of starting the song off, and it starts off a bit sort of slower and like sort of eases you in a bit. And then when Emily comes in, it's like, bam, we're fucking here now. I mean business. Here I am. Get a load of this. And I loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. It was about just a just about as much of a perfect introduction as I think you could give, like, given what the situation is, and like everyone's going to have their own different level of expectation or like their own idea in their head of what they want. I feel like the way that they delivered this sort of in every level was sort of perfectly executed in a way that like no one's expectations were like missed, because I don't think anyone could have kind of predicted this. So I think it's brilliant. I think like I understand the people that like don't feel great about it for like a few different reasons.
At the same time, though, I think they've done it as respectfully as you possibly could have done, really. Like, it's clear that she's not trying to match Chester or be Chester. She's still bringing her own thing. Although still, obviously, she's still got to have the vocal style that fits Linkin Park sound. She's got that, but without making it seem like she's just replacing Chester. She's still bringing her own thing to it.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I really like as well, like musically, this song and Heavy as the Crown, is that I feel like they've written in a way that is like unmistakably them, but it is new. Like it doesn't feel like anything that they've already done to me, but I know that it's them, if that makes sense.
I feel that the vocal melody on this song in particular feels very poppy.
Yeah.
Like it's got that kind of bounce and like a sing-along ability to it, and then it sort of breaks back into being a new metal song at the same time.
Yeah. I think they're great. I mean, they're always going to hold a very special place for a lot of people because of how much like Hybrid Theory means to people, but happy to see them back and doing what they do. So shame we couldn't get tickets, but
yeah,
that was bloody impossible, wasn't it?
I mean, based on the back of this, I would say now it's been out not even a month. I'm going to make a very strong prediction that it's going to be in my top 5 listened songs on Spotify already. Ever since it's come out, I've just found it such an earworm, so catchy. I mean, opening with it, I don't know if either of you saw the live stream or highlights or any parts of it, they open with it straight away. And you kind of see everyone was like, oh, what's going on? And then she kind of walked out separately after it started into her section. Yeah. So it's like you saw them all there and you're like, hang on, what's happening? Is it just Mike? Is he going to do everything or what's going on? And then she came out and it was like, oh, shit, okay. And ever since hearing it on the live stream, it hooked me right from then. I've played it to so many friends as well who kind of used to listen to some old Linkin Park, and then they've just been listening to it relentlessly as well. And I've been in car journeys and been with friends, and they've been like, oh, I just can't stop listening to it. I think this and Heavy as the Crown is a good kind of point where you can show the recognition for Mike Shinoda and his songwriting in particular, because I think he doesn't get recognized enough as genuinely how talented he is as kind of the main archetype and kind of person, I guess, steering the ship.
Like the director.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's fantastic. I love the song. I love her vocals. It's catchy as hell. I have been listening to it, like I say, on repeat, and there have been times it's just gone, end of song, start again. End of song, start again. End of song, start again. I love it. I can't really praise it that much more.
Something that I think it's more noticeable in the live stream and the live footage as well, but the vocal harmonies between Mike and Emily as well work really, really well together.
Really nice. Really, really good. It complements her perfectly, and I think they have a great chemistry already, and I'm just excited to see where this continues to go now, to be honest.
What do we think the likelihood is of Linkin Park being download headliners?
I think likely.
It seems too obvious, doesn't it, now? Like, so you kind of don't want it to be...
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, no, I do want it to be them, but do you see what I mean? Like, you want when you're predicting headlines for a festival like Download, you want it to be like a bit of a left field choice and a bit of a surprise one. But yeah, it feels a bit obvious now, doesn't it?
I think so. I mean, there were some festivals that when they kind of did the initial teasers, they were reposting about the teasers. Like I think Rock am Ring were one of them, and like Rock 'n' Park, because that's kind of the same lineup on different things. And there were a few American ones. Download didn't, but again, I saw photos from when they played literally at time of recording in London yesterday, and Copping was there. So
and Cam, I mean, it's a Live Nation tour.
Yeah. Yep. But he wouldn't miss out on that.
And the European leg has Sleep Token on it.
Only one date. One date.
No, I didn't think they're doing. One like date. Paris.
They're doing
Sao Paulo, I think, as well.
No, so it's Linkin Park and Sleep Token doing Paris. Then they've got Bad Omens and whoever the other band is for Dallas, and then it's just Linkin Park and Sao Paulo.
Gotcha. Okay. Misleading poster.
Misleading poster. You had to look at all the little ticks and crosses
See,
to be like, oh, we're on these available
that-
dates.
I don't do ticks and crosses.
Not to make this one of our like, what is it? Hot takes and unpopular opinions episode. That is one of my biggest gripes. Is like a confusing tour poster like layout.
I think they're
Where it's
deliberately
like,
confusing as well. That's
You've
the
got to
thing.
look for like ancient runes hidden somewhere to figure out if they're a certain band's playing in your city. And it's like
Put the poster under your UV light.
yeah. You got to spin it into facing north and then answer 3 riddles, and then you'll find out who's the support band.
Look at your phone from the charger port.
Oh. That's
Like,
a
squint
great
your
idea.
eyes and you can see.
That is a really good, funny idea for a tour poster. Someone should do that.
Sleep Token are going to do that on the next tour, definitely.
Brilliant.
From one lady vocalist that's killing it to another one.
Spirtobx. Now, I really didn't enjoy the Fear of Fear, to be honest.
Do you know
didn't vibe with me in the
Crazy,
slightest.
because I didn't vibe with it at the time, but it's grown on me immensely. And it's now, I probably listen to that more than I go to like Eternal Blue if I'm going to go to
Interesting.
Spirtobx. So interesting. Sorry.
So there.
So yeah,
there.
that's that.
But this was like, it felt like a return to form for what I wanted from Spirtobx. It's beautifully heavy. I think her vocals just sound absolutely fucking incredible. My only gripe is still that they don't use Josh Gilbert's vocals enough. But that's a hill I'm always going to fight on, to be honest.
He's doing it live though. I've seen
He
more
is.
videos. He's doing more
I
live.
want to hear him recorded on Spirtobx.
Maybe
And
they're saving it.
hear the melodies between her cleans and Josh's vocals. I think will be something really, really fucking cool. But it's an incredible song, and this has, after listening to Fear of Fear and not enjoying it myself, this is a song that has now reeled me back into Spirtobx, and put them back on my radar, because it was kind of like, I mean, we've kind of, I guess if we wanted to, we fucked up at this point already, because I think the tour where they're playing, is it Ali Pali?
Yeah, it's
With
sold out already.
Stray and
No, not Periphery.
Periphery has sold out already. And maybe if I've heard this song beforehand, I would have been like, yeah, cool, I'll get a ticket. And so we kind of screwed that one there, because Stray at Ali Pali as well would have been ridiculous. But anyway, great song. And I'm back in the Spirtobx game.
Good for
Yeah,
you.
I do think it's a great song. Again, just the one that I've enjoyed the most that they've released in a while. But it's no Eternal Blue. It still doesn't match anything off that album for me. And I hate being that guy that's like, oh, it's not like the first album though, because they don't have to like. And it's probably best they don't write stuff exactly like that again. But that's what I want from Spirtobx, really, is that mix of heaviness and cleanness as well. Because I think that lends to Courtney's vocals the best as well, where she's like mixing between the heavy bits and the lighter bits.
Anytime on social media, whenever it comes up with her vocal, like one take of Circle With Me, when it has when she floats between it, I will always sit there and just watch it in full.
Exactly.
Every single time.
But that's what I want. I want the heavy bits, I want the floaty bits, and I want them to kind of combine together to create a piece of music. This has the heavy bits, but not so much the floaty bit for me. I want more floaty bits. Whereas stuff they've released before this has been too floaty and not enough heavy. For me, anyway.
Find the balance between the heavy and the floaty,
Yes,
basically.
find the balance.
I thought it was really good. I think I get what you mean about wanting the balance, but I also think sometimes it's fine to just go full send on just one direction.
I mean, yeah. If this is like the heavy song, then like fair enough.
Yeah. But again, I think maybe it's probably going to be, my opinion might change once it's like contextualized within a bigger body of work, whether it's just an EP or an album. Can I gripe about something again? If that's
Go on
okay.
then.
Gripe number 2 of the episode. Well, actually, it's 2 gripes.
Gripe
Number
number 2
one,
and
it's
3
a
of the
double
I
gripe.
episode.
find it quite lazy when bands' album cycles are just colour. Like, our whole vibe is just this colour. I think it's like, I understand it to a degree, like being part of the aesthetic, but if the whole aesthetic is just colour filter, I just think, come on, what are we doing? You're in the blue area, you're in the green area.
I think it's okay to do it
Bear
once.
Beartooth, yeah. It's very much like...
I think it's alright to do it once, but then, like, if you go from, well, I guess the Spirtobx is the example here. We're blue, and then it's like, oh, we're purple now.
What's
Well,
the new one?
And then what's
We're
this
now
one?
black for the soft spine cover.
Yeah.
But what they've done is they've changed the cover on Spotify, and I think they might have done it for Apple Podcasts as well. So the Eternal Blue cover is now black.
No.
And let me
Can't
let me
be
tell
messing
you,
with my Eternal Blue.
it would be annoying at a surface level. But the album is called Eternal Blue. And it's no longer blue.
Well, yes,
So they
obviously
renamed it
not
to
eternally
Temporary
blue,
Blue.
is it?
So it's temporary blue.
Temporary
Yeah.
blue.
And it's just really wound me up. So minus points for Spirtobx for that.
Yeah, that's not
Tomfoolery.
cool.
Make your
Because
album
it's
blue
just
again.
tomfoolery. You're just messing around for the sake of messing around. You don't need to change an album. Why would you change an album out?
You wouldn't change an album art.
You wouldn't change an album out. You wouldn't do temporary blue. Temporary blue. Fuck's sake.
Blue for now.
Any more gripes on that, or are you
No.
you griped out for the moment?
I'm griped out for now, but let's go into the albums.
Let's talk about this one right here. Boston Manor, Sundiver.
I mean, I've already done a short review of it on our socials, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think of it as well.
I love it. I really, really enjoy it. I think it's a great flow through. I think their songwriting doesn't get talked about enough as well. I think it's fantastic. I think going kind of pretty much, you've got the intro, but then you go straight into Container and Sliding Doors in particular, which are the first two singles released. And immediately after not listening to them a bit of time, I felt like I was just pulled right back into that Boston Manor universe with like a really nice feeling of comfort. And then, to be honest, I hadn't really listened to the next couple of singles that had come out that much. There was kind of like a bit of memory there from them. So that was kind of nice. And then we kind of get into, I guess, essentially what is the back half of the album, where it's the newer stuff we haven't really heard, which I still think was fantastic. I think it's an album of amazing variety. And like I say, with the songwriting, it really just displays the scale of different things that they're able to do and create and absolutely nail, to be honest. It's a very good, easy album to listen to, and easy to revisit. I couldn't recommend it enough. It's kind of exactly what I wanted from Boston Manor, to be honest, out of this. I'm really happy.
Yeah, it's interesting you say it's easy to revisit. I've been listening to songs off this constantly for the whole month. I mean, this came out pretty close to the start of the month, but yeah, I've been listening to it endlessly. You're right about kind of, usually I don't like it when the singles on an album are like back to back, and specifically in the first half like they are on this album, but I think it almost works with this. It kind of, because you know that Boston Manor's music can be slightly complicated and a little bit kind of crazy with like the guitar sounds and the stuff that they're doing. I think it kind of warms you up heat me up, I guess it does. But it kind of, there's a sense of familiarity, like early on hearing songs that you already know, you're already familiar with. It's kind of easing you into the album. And then the second half of the album, like the energy in Why I Sleep and Fornix, I think they're two of my favourite songs on the album. Very Deftonesy, which is absolutely fine. Like Boston Manor said they'd been working on this album for 4 years to try and get the right guitar tones and like get all the right kind of sound and ambience and imagery and everything they wanted for it, and I think it shows. I think you can tell a lot of effort's gone into this, and I think as an overall album, it's probably their best.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like an album of two halves in the sense, I don't mean as in like one's better than the other, but I think they sort of very consciously have done like a half of that feels familiar before you get into it, and then the second half is like essentially completely brand new to you. I think that's sort of, I don't know, it's an interesting way to approach an album, because I didn't appreciate it when Sleep Token did it.
Yeah, I didn't as well,
because it to me it created the vibe of like, well, I can just skip this and start at like track 7 or whatever, or track 6 or 7. Whereas with this, I still felt like, because and I'm not saying that the Sleep Token songs weren't good, but because the first few songs like Container and Sliding Doors and Heat Me Up were so good, it was like, it wasn't a chore to be like, oh well, I've got to listen to stuff I already know to get to the new stuff. It was like, it was exactly what we've been saying. It was a nice like ease in to the album. It just made it really easy.
I don't know if I'm thinking too much into it, but I wonder if it's a deliberate thing of, obviously this is about, like, this is like the second half of the tour. This is the dawn side where you're kind of waking up the next morning. I wonder whether it's deliberately meant to feel like you're going through your morning routine, like you already know these songs. So it's like you're getting up, you're brushing your teeth, making your bed, getting dressed, and then it's like the second half of the album where like you start to think about things, and obviously the lyrically it's an album about kind of getting over something, going through loss, and kind of just getting on with it and moving on and getting on with your day. So I do wonder if kind of the second half of the album where you've got to think about it a bit more on the first listen and take it in a bit more, I wonder if that is kind of to make you, I don't know, maybe I'm going too deep
No,
there,
I think that's a pretty spot on
Viable.
interpretation. Yeah,
Viable.
I thought it was great, and also I can't believe we've not got to this yet. The Harriet feature. I did go into it thinking like, because we know that Debbie can sing like really beautiful, like ethereal cleans, and I thought maybe that might be the vibe. It won't be any of her screaming, but to get both, I thought was like the best way to essentially maximize that feature.
I thought it'd be one or the other. I thought we'd either have the sort of ambience created by her sort of floating voice in the background, or the screaming. I don't think we'd get both.
Yeah, and also Henry's vocals on this album, like his more aggressive delivery, particularly on like the ending of Sliding Doors and stuff. I know that it is a bit like, what's the word? Sort of surplused by a bit of like the processing that they've done to it. Like it is kind of like obviously distorted. But we know from seeing him live that he can scream like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
And all this has done as well is just made me like want the inverse of that feature now. So I just want to hear him on something like Harriet level heavy now, because I think that it's just exciting to hear like those worlds collide when by all logic they kind of shouldn't.
I mean, it's the way that Boston Manor go, like they're practically unpredictable at this point. Like the next album could well be a hardcore album if they really want it to be.
Please.
That'd be really cool.
I'd be here for it as well.
Hell yeah.
There's a couple of details I like as well, like the end of Datura, the previous album, blends exactly into the start of this one, and then sort of the end of DC Mini, which we just talked about, the lyric "it resets and starts again," kind of fading out towards the end of the album, is almost like it's inviting you to start the previous Datura album again and go into
just
the
night and day cycle.
Yeah.
Forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I really appreciate when like a lot of care is taken into like what's being done lyrically is being done like thematically or like musically, I think. Yeah.
And again, it's evident that this has been thought about for a long time. Like for both of these two albums to kind of complement each other and again sort of loop back and almost like call back to each other. Yeah. Almost like they're kind of reflections almost. You sort of spin around like between the two. It's clearly been thought out even before the last album came out. So you got to respect that, I think.
Bloody great album.
Speaking of which, if you want to pick it up on vinyl, head to truckmusic.store. It'll be available there. This one's a nice yellow and white ink spot vinyl. It's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
And thanks again to Truck for letting us use one of their stores as a space today. Go and show them some love.
And one of your favourite bands released an album.
Yes, they did. Exhibition of Prowess by Kublai Khan is everything I wanted it to be. I think like this genre, and particularly like a band like this, you don't need too much, and I feel like my biggest like plus of this album, like my biggest perk of this album, is that it is the perfect length, and it's the perfect amount of like new, and we got a good number of singles, and we had a good chunk of time with them, but there's so much new stuff here to consume, but it never once to me feels like I don't get exhausted from it. I don't hit like a wall with it. I feel like I can just go boom, start to finish every single time.
Yeah,
I think it's brilliant. I think it's like what's kind of been interesting to me is hearing bands like this and bands like Knock Loose sort of dipping their toe in like progressive elements, like being a bit more interesting with like time signature stuff, or like the way that they sort of like would end a fill or end like a 8-bar loop or whatever. They're starting to become like a little bit less predictable, which I think makes the repeat listens that much better, because it's like you kind of don't know when the switch up's going to come, like in a breakdown or whatever. And yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think the features come at like the right time in the album, where if you feel like you kind of need a fresh thing to hear, they come at the time where, like, I guess your ears would need it. And the fact that Amp Pile 2 is literally one word, and it's like harder than most bands could even try and do. So have that.
You see, this album is exactly what I expected it would be, and I mean that both as a compliment and I think I said insult, not an insult, and as a criticism. A compliment because we just know Kublai Khan are fucking excellent, that this was going to be a balls to the wall, brilliant hardcore album. A criticism because I want more of that unpredictability. Like, if I'm expecting it to be exactly this and it is this, then you've kind of, I guess, not done enough to shock me. I want something that's gonna rip my face off, or something like a breakdown that's gonna, I don't know, put some unexpected clean vocals in there somewhere, or
Yeah, no, I get that.
like a crazy drum fill that you've not done before. Which again, it's not that it's boring or anything, but it's all stuff that they've done before. And with it being such a delay, like the last album was 2019, the last full release, and it's like 5 years since that. Maybe I wanted a bit more, but at the same time, fucking love the album. They've got, I think it says a lot about your band when, like, even just a pinch harmonic, I can hear just that and go, that's Kublai Khan.
Yeah.
And another thing I really like, but the main thing I really love about this album is it sounds like a live set. Like with some of those mosh calls and stuff being like actual lyrics on the songs.
Yeah.
Like when Matt's singing bow your fucking head or whatever it is,
Yeah.
nod your fucking head, I'm like, okay, yeah, I will.
I find it interesting because, kind of similarly to you, Dan, I had both positives and negatives for it. I think I have to be in a certain mind to listen to Kublai Khan. And whilst, like, kind of pretty much most of the time when I actually kind of went to go and listen to it, loved it, I didn't have, despite, again, the short nature of the album only being about 23 minutes long, I didn't have the desire to, like, want to go back and start it again. It felt like I had to have one listen, then I need to take a break from it. To be honest.
Yeah, I disagree on that point. I still wanted to keep going.
Nah,
It's not that I didn't like the album.
No, I'm not saying you didn't like the
I'm
album.
not saying
just
what.
'cause you said about,
Yeah,
like,
what I'm saying
positives
wasn't
and-
necessarily
yeah.
negatives. It was just like,
But that was just like,
it's just that it was what I
the
expected.
comparison was like I could do the once through, and then I needed a break.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, I probably haven't delved into them as much as either of you have. I think, like, kind of what you said, they have a very distinct sound which you can kind of hear the smallest part. I'm like, yeah, I know it's them, but I found for me there wasn't as much of the diversity of that. Like, it fucking goes hard and the short songs help and they fucking go off. I won't deny that. But it just didn't have, for me, anything that would be like pulling me back in immediately. Which was kind of a bit like, I don't know. My expectations were high, I guess, just based on name value and the songs I've heard that have been sick. But it just didn't feel like it met, I guess, the idea I had in my head of what it was going to be.
I think the point I was trying to make was on evolution. I think that's the word I'm looking for, is that this sounds the same as their previous album. Whereas, because there's been so long since then, and they've been playing so many shows and kind of broken out quite a lot since then, I was kind of hoping there'd be a bit more of a development to their sound, but it's still kind of the same as it was, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
That's
It's
fair.
just I was kind of hoping for something like new and I guess a bit groundbreaking.
No, I
But
get
it's
that.
still fine. Still really enjoy this album. And the star of the show is actually the snare drum as well.
Yes.
Some of the rim shots that come off that is lovely.
So that's all the albums that we've just reviewed that have come out the last month. Ali, what's coming out next month?
Next month, we've got a lot to look forward to. We have, are we ready?
I think so.
Dark or White by Fever 333. The Last Will and Testament by Opeth. The Nothing That Is by Fit for an Autopsy. Guided Tour by High Vis. Heaven Can Wait by Trash Boat. Highly Irresponsible by Better Lovers. And that is it. What are we most excited for?
It's a tough one. There's a lot to be excited for there. I think that Trash Boat album is going to be really good. The singles have been great so far. They seem to be going in a heavy direction again, which I'm very excited by. And the album artwork's fucking cool. So I'm going to give that one a shout.
It's a toss-up between the World Putneys. Fit for an Autopsy and Better Lovers. I'm just very excited for both of those and to hear kind of the whole album and how they're going to sound.
I agree. Like we said earlier, Fit for an Autopsy, I think, excel in the full album format. So that's one that I'm quite excited to get my teeth into. And then, yeah, Better Lovers is just going to be absolute insanity. I think
Chaos.
going into an album with absolutely no idea of what to expect.
It's like there's no rules for this album.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be bloody great.
If you want to pick up any of these albums, pre-order them. Most of them will be available at truckmusic.store. Go and check it out.
Buy them. So Gig Talk, the only thing we did since the last podcast was Burn It Down Festival, and that's had its own vlog, which you can go and watch now. It's got the recap podcast, you can go and watch now. There's interviews, some are out, some are still to come. You can watch all those now. We've got Graphic Nature, we've got Aramea, we've got Blank Atlas,
Might be my favourite one.
Split Chain.
That's my favourite one.
And there was one more?
Nope, just those.
No, that is those four. Okay, I'm perfect. There we go. Anyway, go watch them all kinds of social content with them. Great people. We love the chat. So thank you again, as much as we keep saying it, for the time that you gave to us.
I think that's one of my favourite vlogs that we've done as well. So
yeah,
it'd be nice if you went and watched it. It's a really good video, I think.
Really good. A wonderful festival.
The Wheel.
If you were ever thinking of going to like a new festival that you haven't been to before, definitely recommend Burn It Down Festival for next year. So keep your eyes peeled.
Very grateful for the Burn It Down team for having us again.
Do we have any gigs coming up in the next month? Oh, actually, hang on.
Genuinely, I can't remember.
Hang on.
The story so far soon.
We did go to another gig last month.
We did, didn't we?
We saw the Worst Wishes debut show.
The Worst Wishes.
Is that allowed?
The
Can we
Worst
talk about
Wishes
that?
debut show. We can talk about that. You, Josh, Glennie, and Sam. Debut show in Oxford at the library. You guys fucking killed it.
Thank you.
I thought it was brilliant.
You
Like,
guys absolutely killed it.
You could say like for a first show it was great, but even like first show aside, I thought it was
Like,
excellent.
Thanks,
remove
guys.
any kind of bias out of it. You guys nailed it.
The sad thing is they haven't got any songs that
Not
you can
yet,
listen
not
to
yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, you guys killed it. You should all be incredibly proud of yourselves for that. And I think I speak for me, Dan, and everyone else that went to go and see it who knows you guys and are friends of you lot. Like, everyone was proud of you. So we did have another gig last month, and that was you guys. So check out Worst Wishes. Go follow the socials. Is it just at Worst Wishes?
At Worst Wishes Band on everything.
There you go.
Nice
There's your
and easy.
plug.
I think you've got some merch available as well, haven't you?
So merch on our Bandcamp. Oh, we'll put the link in the bio. Fuck it.
Yeah,
It's our channel. We can do it.
You get the plug.
Yeah, we got some t-shirts for sale on Bandcamp.
Buy them.
Hopefully another gig soon. Not confirmed, but if one it is, we'll let you know.
Still cooking.
It was
still
very
cooking.
fun. Yeah. And life affirming.
And you, sorry,
Yeah.
so coming up,
Upcoming gigs. I think the story so far is sometime soon-ish.
Yeah.
we might be
You know,
there.
I might go to
You know
Citizen.
what? Like, since the reason we haven't been to many gigs this month is since Burn It Down. I think we've just been like so busy with making content for that and a little burnt out perhaps. So
You need to
we've-
hibernate for a little
We've
bit.
not really been to many gigs,
No.
and I've like completely lost connection of when the
Things are
upcoming
happening,
gigs
I've
Yeah,
are.
no
like-
clue.
I've just
the-
realised Boston Manor on
That,
tour
I was
this
about
week.
to say that tour is
Oh.
going on now, and we've just completely let that pass us by.
Beartooth, Polaris, and
That's
Landmarks.
the end of October. That'll be good.
Saturday, 26th of October.
Which must mean the story so far is the end of October as well. Isn't
Yeah.
It's the day before. It's 25th.
It? Yeah.
There you
Friday.
go.
Which is also the same night as Citizen playing Youth in Full in London. So might go to that instead, but we'll find out. It's a toss-up, innit? Because that's a great album, but the story so far is Oxford. Tricky.
Back in bed by.
I'd like
half
to
11.
be going to Outbreak Autumn, but it's a Sunday, so that's not
And
happening.
it's in Manchester.
Nope.
Anyway,
That's gigs.
that's gigs.
Sleep Tokens soon, but that's November, I think. So
I think
maybe even December.
the only thing I've got Fit for an Autopsy at some point. Don't know when that is. That's the thing. Like, we're going tangent here.
Am I going to see Wonder Horse on Oxford? I think that's October.
I've got no idea
When are Blank
things
Atlas playing in Gloucester?
That's November.
November.
See, fuck knows.
By the way, they played in Cheltenham last weekend.
Yeah,
I don't
Stu's
know.
on that. What are we doing? Terrible.
Right, we need to get our shit together for gigs
Yeah.
again, don't we? We need to kind of pull out the slump.
But yeah,
out of hibernation. But
I
yeah,
mean, we've been busy. We've been planning.
busy.
We've been planning stuff like this.
Look at us go.
And making loads of really cool content that's all on the channel. And if it's not on the channel yet, it's coming soon.
Subscribe if you haven't.
Big things coming soon. Alex is in a band. He's been busy with that as well.
Big things coming soon with that as well.
When's this coming out?
When's this coming out?
Yeah.
Within a week.
It's out now. What are you on about? People are
It's
watching
out
it.
now. You're watching
at
it
the time of
now.
recording, it'll be out within a
Oh,
week.
we've
There'll
gone-
probably
we've
be a
gone
website
silly.
up and running as well where you can buy
Oh
merch.
yeah, we can plug the website then. Yeah.
So head to ragamuffins666.uk, cop yourself a t-shirt, limited stock, and
Registered
support
our
your
own domain.
favorite podcast, which is obviously us. It wouldn't be anyone else.
Yeah, support your favourite podcast and also buy some of our merch as well.
Hey, we're the favorite podcast.
Hey. Before we get to our discussion, if you're enjoying yourself so far and you want to join the conversation, you can head to the Ragamuffin Club. The link's in the bio. It's our little Facebook community where us and all of our friends talk even more about the music that we love. People talk about gigs, albums, all sorts of shit. It's
And
loads
everyone's
of
been
fun.
taking the piss out of me this week.
Yep. Good fun.
Yeah.
So if that sounds like it might be your cup of tea, check the link in the bio. Fun, free, friendly.
Bully down.
Bully down.
I can take it. It's fine.
There we go. And now we'll discuss something.
So next year, I believe, is the 30th anniversary of Warped Tour. Now, I think it was 2019. It all kind of came to a T. It was the 25th anniversary. The year before was the last, I think, full time of it being a touring festival. And 2019 for 25th anniversary, I think it was 3 dates they did across America as the celebration and to kind of cap it off and say, well, the kind of system and how it worked wasn't really viable anymore. Let's do a celebration. And then Kevin Lyman said, we're calling it a day. Now, kind of immediately after that, there were rumours about it. It was Franz from Attila was rumoured to be buying it for quite a while. And there were a lot of talks about that and him wanting to bring it back. But early this year, they started to kind of come back around again. I think it was Vans started posting energy drinks, I think it was, or Monster were posting energy drinks with the Warped Tour logo on. There was like kind of merch going, which got discussion. And then in the past month or so, it's really started to ramp up. And now...
Oh, yeah, I'd completely forgotten about that.
Yeah.
They were literally on sale.
They were on sale.
In stores.
Yeah.
In Walmart.
But that's the thing. Like in the past few weeks, Kevin Lyman has said there are plans. Something is happening next year. We're going to find out what it is. And there could be a lot of discussion to be had about Warped Tour. Should it actually return? Because there is an interesting culture behind it, which you can go and watch the What the Fuck Happened to Warped Tour video that's on the channel. A little kind of talk about the history of it. But can it exist in the current format? Will it come back as a touring festival? Will it be more like 2019 where maybe it's more based at a location for a couple of days? How do we think Warped Tour could come back and fit in the current climate of how festivals are run?
Yeah. And who's more qualified than 3 British boys who have never been? But let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, the main point you make there is how can it exist in the current climate? And the thing that concerns me about that is the existence of When We Were Young festival.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many of the bands that play that festival every year are exclusives?
Mm-hmm.
But also at the same time, as I try and make this point, there hasn't been an announcement for next year's festival, has there?
I don't think so.
Well, it's normally August time, so it should be
Yeah.
happening. Is it
Should
even
we-
happening this year?
Google.
Good point.
While you're doing your research, pull it up,
By the
Jamie.
way, by the way, I did no research for this discussion at all.
But I think a part of it that I've seen...
my point being, if like When We Were Young and Warped Tour probably can't exist at the same time because they'd want to use the same bands.
It is happening this year because it's a bunch of bands doing like full albums.
What the dates?
Did that already happen?
No,
Wow.
it's October 19th and 20th at Las Vegas Festival Grounds. You've got the
Wow, there you
likes of My Chem doing the Black Parade, Jimmy Eat World doing Bleed American,
See, like, yeah, I remember the announcement for this, and it just felt like it was
a
like,
fever dream.
ages ago.
Yeah.
So I just assumed it had kind of already happened. But
This
there
is
we are.
mad. A Day to Remember doing Homesick, All American Rejects self-titled, Newfound Glory Sticks and Stones, Basement Calamity and Kindness, Neck Deep Life's Now to Get You. I mean, fucking hell, this is ridiculous. State Champs for Finer Things, Mum Jeans, Best Buds. I could go on.
Mm. But yeah,
And I will go on. No. Yeah. Movements Feel Something. Mayday Parade, A Lesson in Romantics. Pierce the Veil, Collide with the Sky. Did I say that already?
No.
Fall Out Boy not listed as doing an album, which is interesting. So they're probably just doing a normal set.
Are they doing both days?
Don't know. Maybe.
Possibly. Oh well.
But anyway,
either way, my point being, like, if Warped Tour is going to come back and come back big, it's going to want all of those bands.
Yeah.
But if When We Were Young and Warped Tour are going to exist in the same space, then they're going to be competing over bands.
Yeah. Well, it dilutes the market, doesn't it?
Yeah. And complete saturated. They're not just competing for bands; they're competing for fans as well.
Yeah.
Like people, with how much festivals cost these days, especially one like When We Were Young, people are going to choose one or the other. They're not going to be able to do both.
I guess the only thing that could work in Warped Tour's favour is the fact that you've got to travel for this, whereas Warped Tour was obviously all across America, so the chances of it coming closer to you than this are obviously much higher.
Which also maybe gives it an opportunity to be kind of scale back a bit more and maybe have, because those are all massive bands on that When We Were Young lineup.
Yeah.
If they go for maybe more up and coming bands, then yeah, maybe.
Kind of to touch on what you said as well with running costs. A lot of discussion that I've seen online has been about how Warped Tour used to be $40 a day to go to. And now if you look at the current climate of production, of touring, of bands, of how much it is to go to festivals and gigs, it cannot go back to that format. Therefore, you're going to probably see a Warped Tour probably going to maybe more of like a $200 mark.
Well,
at a rough estimate for the amount of bands they're going to have. You've got to think, as a travelling festival, the cost that it's going to run through in a modern day climate compared to 20 odd years ago are going to be so much more. Then is it even going to be a higher price than that?
Well,
and so it's hard to know if it's it's hard to know with that in mind, can it return to being a travelling festival?
Yeah. Because if you compare it to the closest similar thing that our country has, you've obviously got Slam Dunk, which used to operate North, Midlands and South for about 40 to 50 quid a ticket. Now, they don't even operate a Midlands date. It's just North and South, and you're looking at over 100 quid a ticket easily every year. So, and that's just for a one day in 2 locations in the country. Imagine the upkeep now and the running costs for something like Warped Tour to try and exist on the road like it did.
And that's now like Slam Dunk's been in like actual outdoor festival sites now.
Yeah.
Like Warped Tour famously was just like you rock up in a car park somewhere and you go and see a bunch of emo and pop punk and metalcore bands.
Yeah, and I think
so maybe it won't be the same.
Even beyond just When We Were Young, you've got things like, I feel like in the US there's been a bit of an explosion of festivals, particularly coming out of the pandemic. You've got like Sad Summerfest, which operates in a pretty similar way to Warped Tour in the sense that it's basically just a very big tour of like, I think it's like maybe 7 or 8 bands or something. Let's find out so I'm not misinformed. But you've got stuff like that. You've also got things like Welcome to Rockville and Blue Ridge and stuff. So I feel like the alternative festival scene in America is just so dense now. I feel like the only bands that are sort of missing out on stuff like that is the more like pop punk and emo bands, because obviously Warped Tour used to be the home for a lot of like metalcore bands and hardcore bands, and they've sort of found a home in like the Welcome to Rockville, Blue Ridge type of stuff. And I guess all the pop punk and emo stuff's all gone to When We Were Young. So, and then you've also got Sick New World, which is again like
new metal
and more like up and coming bands like Spirtobx and Loathe are playing stuff like that. So I think the biggest problem to me that I think Warped Tour would face is like booking a lineup worth going to, because bands nowadays are also so busy, and I just think I don't know how you're going to be able to book enough to make it feel like it's worthwhile. Do you know what I mean? But I guess it comes down to how many like stages they want and stuff, because my perception of Warped Tour like as a teenager was that there was like 8 or 9 stages and like constant music all day.
Yeah.
If it's scaled back to like Slam Dunk where it's like 4 or 5 stages max, maybe it becomes a little bit more viable. Just circling back to Sad Summer Festival, this year's festival had Mayday Parade and The Main as co-headliners, and I think they were like the founders of it, so I have a feeling one of those bands at least
Okay.
might do it every year. Not sure which though. We've also got the Wonder Years, We the Kings, Real Friends, Knucklepuck, Somerset, Hot Milk, Diva Bleach, sorry, Daisy Grenade, and Like Roses.
I could be wrong as well, but I think they alternate the headliners, which is something that Warped Tour used to do as well.
Yeah, I think Warped Tour you'd literally just get a random set time.
They would have a massive kind of inflatable that had set times on there, and it
They
would
were like
change
Velcro,
every day,
weren't
pretty much, yeah. And every day it would be a different time bands are on, and
Mm.
you'd rock up, and different band could be headlining different times compared to yesterday.
Which I think that's a nice way of doing it.
Yeah, it
I think
keeps
that's cool.
surprising, it keeps it fresh, doesn't it? Talking about bands then, if it was to come back next year, who would you say could be on top of the bill for like the big 30th anniversary, whether it comes back touring, whether it comes back as more of a, we're going to do 3 dates again across the country in America, who could you see fitting the top of that bill?
You see, I think again it depends like what their target's going to be. If they're going to aim to compete with the likes of When We Were Young, then they've got to go big on it. For like the likes of, I don't know, like All Time Low, Fall Out Boy, those kind of bands. But I think if they're going to fit in the current festival market, they've probably got to go a bit more like a medium-sized festival and kind of go for, I mean, maybe like a Sad Summer Fest kind of size, those kind of bands, to have like the Wonder Years and sort of, I don't know, maybe even like Hot Mulligan or something, those kind of bands as sort of your headliner size. But I worry that because it looks like they're going to have Vans and Monster as like the sponsors once again, that makes me think that they're going to want to aim quite high with it.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's name
Yeah,
value
it's
there
tough.
just within the festival name as well, isn't
Yep.
it? You hear Vans Warped Tour's coming back. It's hard to see it as a smaller size than kind of what it became, because it was its own monster. It had its own culture and its own beast. And like you say, coming like being in the UK, for me it was always a dream. Like one day I'd love to go over there and just go and catch one date, because it feels like almost a rite of passage if you listen to any of that kind of music that you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'd
experience
watch the live streams all the time.
Yeah, same.
But do we perceive it as being bigger than it was?
I think
'Cause
maybe
we didn't have it. You know?
Yeah,
maybe, but
we
I think
we were never actually there. I don't like. I'd have to look back at like previous lineups. I can't remember specifically who would have like been like top of the bill, but I can't recall it being like anyone massive.
It's all relative though, isn't it? Because it's like, I definitely remember watching one of the year's kickoff live streams, and I think the headliner of that day was Black Veil Brides. And if you think about how big they were in that scene at the time, that is like kind of as big as it gets. And they had bands like Asking Alexandria as well, who were like big names.
But then as well, like I think back to watching old sets of bands that would be lower down on the bill, and I remember seeing Beartooth, Sleeps, Wage War, Sum 41, like bands that we listen to now who are very capable of having big size venues, like Ali Pali, like a 10,000 plus venue to sell out on their own, and kind of
But
seeing them
that-
lower down on the bill.
That would have
just
been while
feels
they were up
weird.
and coming, though. That's the thing.
Exactly.
I think that's what Warped Tour did a good job of doing, is like having so many bands for you to discover. They were like notoriously great at being the stepping stone for a lot of UK bands to like kind of cut their teeth in the US. Like Boston Manor, Neck Deep, Don Broco, a load of bands like that would have played Warped Tour as like their first US tour.
I want to say, if I remember rightly from making that video about Warped Tour, that one of the bands that played it most was Real Big Fish.
Yeah,
I think it was a stupid amount of times that they played.
So I've got the lineup for 2016 in front of me at the moment, and the first thing to note is that it's not laid out, any of like the Google images that you see on them, none of them are laid out with like, here's the headliner. It's very much like,
Is it just
Is it
it's
alphabetized?
alphabetical, here's just all the bands, which I think further drives home the point of the randomized aspect of like, it's anyone's given day to be the last band on.
So
Do you think they did that because of like all the issues that people get on the road though? Like you'd hear so many stories of bands going on Warped Tour and it's like, oh, we had a puncture on the highway, or like our trailer fell off.
Maybe it probably was a factor.
So maybe like the unpredictability of not knowing when a band's actually going to arrive on the site is why they did that kind of stuff.
Maybe.
So 2016.
But again, your point being there's not necessarily bands that are bigger than the others on there.
Yeah.
So
So
reel me off some names from 2016.
2016, as I sort of glance through it, I can see that we've got some pretty big names for the time, especially. You've got stuff like Knucklepuck, 4 Years Strong, Sleeping with Sirens, State Champ, Sum 41, Real Friends. What else have we got here?
Story So Far, Veil of Maya, Wage War.
Yeah, you get into the heavy stuff. You've
Whitechapel,
got Every Time I
Atreyu,
Die, Atreyu,
Chelsea Grin,
like there is a real mix, and I think
Good Charlotte.
it's a weird one because a part of me thinks that like the appeal of Warped Tour as a band would have been that you're getting in front of so many people across the span of the summer.
Yeah.
But because of things like TikTok and the way that the internet is now, it's just as easy to get your band in front of people online as it is to like.
So what you're saying is there might not be that incentive for
the bands to do it. Yeah,
take the risk of going out and playing shows.
Because the alternative scenes, like realistically, I know we're sat here thinking about like the saturation of the market if they're competing with things like When We Were Young. There are enough bands for them to fill like 30 spots worth for a summer tour, but it's just whether or not it's worth it for like everyone involved. And the problem is the higher the costs go and the higher it is, like the band fees are, the higher it is for the consumer at the end of the day. And that's where they're going to come unstuck, because I just don't think, especially in the cost of living, you can't expect people to be forking out like $100 plus for a one dayer. I just don't think it's reasonable.
Yeah, and I mean that lineup nowadays wouldn't cost less than $100. I'd have thought per ticket.
Hell no. So then, I
was listening to sorry to interrupt. I was listening to the Two Promoters One Pod, I think it's called, their podcast, which is the promoter of 2000 Trees and Arctangent, and the festival that I've forgotten the name of.
Is it Damnation?
Damnation, that's right. One of their episodes, they talked about like how the cost of a band, the cost of booking a band has just gone crazy pretty much since the pandemic. And it's not necessarily that the bands are demanding more money for the sake of it, it's because the cost of being a band has gone up as well.
Yeah.
So I can't remember the example he gave. I think it might have been Idols, that he said I think he booked them for like 200, James booked them for like 200 quid to play Trees in 2016. And then their recent headline show, I don't think he was able to disclose the actual figure, but it was
a lot more,
like
significantly more,
thousands and thousands.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that's because Idols are far more popular than they were when they were smaller, but still, like, yeah, the cost of some people that like maybe haven't been in the industry or haven't been around festivals don't really realise how many things you have to think about and how many costs there are to run a festival.
Because it's not even just the bands; it's crew, food, security, facilities.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, if Warped Tour comes back as it was, then you've got to put water points. Like this car park that it's in, there's no taps there. You've got to put water points in. You've got to put bars in. You've got to have food vendors in, and like all of these people will want some kind of cut somewhere. So yeah, there's a lot of costs.
Yeah, I think my sort of like final takeaway is that it would be really cool for it to come back, but my fear is that it would be like kind of one disastrous summer and then it wouldn't come back again, and then that's the lasting like legacy that we have as like a sour taste.
I worry about it coming back as like a cash grab as well.
Yeah,
like almost like a fire festival kind of thing. I don't think it'd be that disastrous. I think they'd have, I mean, like they might have good intentions, but it depends like who's putting it on essentially, whether they've got the experience and like the respect for fans to do it right. And I hope they do.
I can see bands on that bill playing it again. I think by the association of having it as Warped Tour, like I could easily see a Beartooth back there. Even if they went more of like not going to that kind of just list of names, if they went to a more traditional festival approach of headliner slots, Beartooth could be a very good headliner to have as a kind of mid-card headliner in America, at least at the minute. I mean, they do arenas in Columbus anyway.
And also there's going to be a lot of eyes on this lineup when it drops.
Yeah, a hell of a lot. And it is a good opportunity, like they've done in the past, to showcase new talent, showcase new bands, which, I mean, we've always said we're going to multiple festivals Like, it's great to just go and have that wander around when you've got a bit of time to catch new artists, and it's how you discover new favourite bands. And shit, I've never heard of them. They're amazing. I'm just going to go listen to them for ages. I'm going to get some merch. So it does provide a good opportunity with that. But
I mean, I do hope it is a success. I've felt a lot of the points I've made have been very like doom and gloom and very like sort of tentative. But I do hope it comes back and is a great success. And sort of generates a great like safe environment for people to enjoy the culture of alternative music.
And maybe we end up going.
That would be a great video.
Maybe a Ragamuffins at 30th anniversary of Warped Tour is going to happen next year.
Go on, Kev.
Go on, Kev.
Go on, invite
I
us
know
over.
you're watching. You want some British boys there.
Yeah,
Specifically
like,
the
we're them.
We've got our doubts about this. Prove us wrong by having us along to see how it really turns out.
And also, we've earned it. I've watched plenty of laggy, bugged out Warped Tour live streams in my time.
Need to see it in person now.
The one years we're meant to be on at 2 a.m.
Or like you're looking at the stage splits and it's like, oh, awesome, 4 Year Strong are going to be up next. But then the live feed cuts to a completely different stage. And suddenly I'm watching Finch and I'm like, this is absolutely diabolical. No disrespect to Finch. Well, actually, no, they were terrible. But I'd like to be there in person.
Finch on the like Shark's left testicle stage or whatever it was called.
Journey's left stage, I think it was.
Was that it?
Journey's
Oh,
left
okay.
and Journey's right, I think.
Well, there goes
Shark's bollock stage.
there goes the Journey sponsorship.
But let us know down below, like, what's your opinion on it? Were you lucky enough to ever go to a Warped Tour?
Yeah, tell us a Warped Tour story in the comments.
Give us your experiences.
Tell us your warped stories.
Ooh. But let us know. Like, be interested to know more about it. Who could you see being there next year? Do you reckon it's more of a touring thing again? Is it just a one-off for 30th anniversary? What's happening? Let us know.
Album recommendation.
We've come to the end of yet another podcast episode.
Brilliant.
So it's time to recommend something for next time.
Does anybody know what they want to recommend?
I do.
Go on then.
But I need to find the name of it.
I'm going to recommend an album that was introduced to me by a mate recently. I'd always heard of Carnival, but I'd never listened to them. And so he recommended me Themata. I very much enjoyed it. And I'm going to make you boys listen to it now, to be honest. Very, very fun.
Awesome. I'm going to recommend an EP called I Used to Dream of Drowning by Long Goodbye. This is sick as fuck. And it's everything that I would want a metalcore band to be if I was in one. So this is me vicariously living a metalcore dream. Very 2000s-esque, very cool. So hope you like it.
I'm a very lucky boy. I'll be seeing Sleep Token very soon. I'm starting to get very excited for it. And Bill Murray is supporting. So I need to learn some Bill Murray songs.
Yes.
All I see on social media is Crank That Hog, I think it is.
This is the thing. I don't like country music, but
I hate it.
But Bill Murray, from what I understand, from the couple of songs I've heard of theirs, which I've kind of enjoyed, to be fair, there's a bit of like a country metalcore crossover.
I've got to listen to country.
No, it's
countrycore.
Countrycore.
So I'm going to listen to their album that came out this year called American Motorsports, and you two are as well.
already have, but a pleasure to go back to it.
Oh, I don't want to listen to country.
You might like it.
It's not. It's a bit more than that. There's a bit more going on than just country. Aesthetically, he looks. If you didn't know, he looks like a country guy, but it's all over the place.
I see the bits on social media, and I see it, and I'm like, oh god, and I scroll past. So
that is going to be an absolutely bonkers like vibe change, though, because him on stage is like feral. So going from that to Sleep.
That's what I'm excited about. Like he's a silly old boy, seemingly, Mr. Murray.
Johnny Craig?
Huh?
Is it Johnny Craig?
No. Johnny Frank.
That's the one. He was in Attack, wasn't he?
He was.
Right.
There we go. Another happy landing.
This has been nice, I think. It's been nice to have people looking in.
You can see us, but we can't see you.
It's been nice to be in Truck again. Thanks to them for having us here. Head to truckmusic.store if you want to pick up any new music.
Definitely. I mean, the usual shit, like, comment, subscribe. We love hearing everyone's opinions, whether it's down in the comments below or in the Ragamuffin Club, as you mentioned. The link is below. Come and join us and talk about it. We've got our website now, as kind of mentioned earlier. Buy some merch. We love seeing the people that have some t-shirts already at gigs wearing them. It's like a little bit of happiness. So
They
join
always
in the
look
fun.
They always look cooler than everyone else in the venue as well.
I
Yeah,
think-
they look
yeah.
sick. They look
Honestly.
Cool. What else have we got coming up? We've got
Well, we've got some gigs, but we don't know when any of them are. So.
yeah, forget the gigs.
But we'll probably vlog them.
We have got some interviews probably in the pipeline. that are coming through.
we'll be seeing the return of A Perfect Gig before the end of the year.
Season 2.
Season 2, rebrand.
Maybe some bands, maybe some of our friends.
Festival season
Well,
is now done.
We've kind of stepped up our TikTok game as well. Maybe
Yep.
people should follow us on TikTok.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
TikTok.
influencing, I'd say.
Influencers.
Influencers.
At RAGAMUFFIN666 on all our social medias. Festival season's all wrapped up and done. Download Slam Dunk 2000 Trees, burn it down. Go watch all the vlogs, revisit it, and see the nice weather we had while it is currently pissing down with rain across the country.
I mean, maybe not the download one if you want.
Oh yeah, that was
Oh, yeah,
quite
that's-
rainy, wasn't it?
That's bad.
Some of it was okay.
Do you know what? Our intros are really concise, but our outros are
Shite.
fucking terrible.
That's nice.
it.
It's conversational.
It's over.
If you've reached this point in the podcast, can you please comment an outro that we should do for the next episode of the podcast? Thank you.
That's that. See you later.
Subscribe.
Thanks for coming.
Subscribe.
Safe journey home.
Subscribe.
Be seeing you now.
Unsubscribe.